So yeah, Ronnie George, welcome to the EntreNetwork, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll just kind of give a quick dive into who you are as a person. So Ronnie George, military kid, right? You moved every 2 or 3 years, and then you
Yeah.
finally got a chance to settle, and you're on the outskirts of Lafayette. So kind of tell us how you was able to get to Lafayette, or the outskirts of Lafayette.
First off, I want to point out the fact that you even knew that and did the research on my little about me is good. I like that. That's kudos on your point. Um, but yeah, man, no, my mom remarried when I was, I think like in elementary school, and we moved around like 15 different schools before I kind of finished out. And I ended up settling like in Alexandria area, got into real estate when I was 18. And then just kind of did that. And then I started my own brokerage in 17. And we just moved out of Alexandria just, for a better area, just, more peace of mind, more opportunity. And I wanted to start another location in the Lafayette area. So that's why we had moved down there. And I find myself, coming back and forth to Alexandria and trying to get the Lafayette area up and going. So that's kind of where, in a quick recap, in a nutshell about, my little past.
Got it. So what did you do before real estate?
I have no idea. I mean, I was 18, so I have no, I don't even know. I probably did random stuff. I think I was working at Ace Audio, which was installing car radios and speakers and stuff like that. And I was also a firefighter for a little bit. Then I worked at the prison. So I did a number of different things. And that was while I was doing real estate, not all before I was 18. But yeah, I had like little odds and ends jobs, but I was doing like real estate part-time. And then I really went full time into real estate, probably like in 2013. Like I got my license in 2016, went full time a little bit. The market crashed. So then I pulled back, stayed part time with it, and then went back full time in 2013. So then I was just doing nothing but real estate then. But in those downtimes, I had worked at like the Bureau of Prisons, right up here in Pollock, dealing with inmates and stuff like that. So that was fun. I learned a lot about people and respect and how to, deal with people a lot more at like a 20-year-old age. So that really helped a lot. And then being a firefighter. So those are my, I guess, other careers.
Got it. So with all of that, what's the biggest thing that allowed you to, or that helped you with real estate overall? You said some of those jobs allowed you to kind of get to know people a lot more.
Yeah.
What kind of skills besides that one allowed you to transition to full-time as a real estate broker or agent and then broker?
I guess the main thing is realizing that there's so much more to life that people take advantage or don't take advantage of. By when I would go and work at the prison, I'm there with people that are stuck there for years or for life. They'll never get out. I get to leave every single day. So it really got to show me like the conditions that they got to live in and all this other opportunity that I have, and I would keep doing real estate and stuff like that part-time. So it was the appreciation of the opportunities that we do actually have as individuals, not being in prison, so that alone right there shows you that it's like, it's not really that bad. Like all these things that we see online and all this stuff, it's like, trust me, it could be much, much worse. You could be away from your family. You could be away from this. You could be stuck with a bunch of other dudes or women or whatever, stuck in an area that you'll never see anyone you know or love. So it's like, I mean, come on, it could get a lot worse than what we really have it here. So it's that understanding, that appreciation that really helped when I left there to go into full time of just really enjoying every single day of what I was doing with real estate. I'm like, I get to do this for a job. Come on, so that type of stuff. And then learning how to deal with people who were, twice my age that committed these crazy crimes, and to get them to do stuff, to clean their room, to stay off the grass, like to do like stuff. You have to learn how to talk to people, and show respect to one another. And in the prison atmosphere, it's all about respect, and it's like people will do horrible things to other people who disrespect them. Mm-hmm. So it's like you learn that dynamic of how to treat a person in a respectful way. And that carries over with real estate. You understand that people might go through tough times, but underneath all that, they're still a person and they might just be experiencing something difficult. So you can be that that rock or that pillar that kind of keeps them stable and solid while they're going through their tough times and stuff like that, and getting them through the deal, you know, and being that emotionalist individual and not making it about yourself, but understanding they're going through the situation and I'm here to get you through that, you know?
No, that's a really good point, because we recently got a house probably a year or so ago, and putting yourself in the buyer's shoes or the seller's shoes, right? You're pretty much there to help, and then the questions that you have, or that the buyer or the seller has, you have to be able to answer those questions and really put yourself in their shoes and make it about them, because in a sense it really is, right? It's a big decision for that person. No matter what they're actually doing, if it's buying or selling. So with all of that, what made you get into entrepreneurship overall? You said you started at 18 into the real estate world, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, but touching back on exactly like what you said, a lot of people think that they are a certain way until they put themselves in a stressful situation. And then the side of them comes out and they're freaking out. They're like worried, they're anxious. They're just in a situation they've never been in. And I think that's where the value of real estate agents really do come in, is because we do this every day. So it's not about us. We can remove the emotion, but buyers and sellers don't buy and sell properties every day, you know? So they're not used to dealing with the emotional ups and downs and the setbacks and stuff like that. So if anything, that's where real estate agents will always hold their value, simply because they're there to kind of bring everybody back to neutral, be like, I got this, I can take care of this. And that's kind of where I guess my perspective on real estate. But as far as what got me into entrepreneurship, it's basically because I was fired from the other brokerage that I was at. So I really had no choice. You know, I was like in the middle of this big chaotic thing that just didn't turn out the way that it should have. And it was like social media being social media. So basically, people just kind of cast me out of my own way. And I'm like, okay, well, I know I didn't do these certain things that were being presented in a certain way. So I'm like, I'll just prove y'all wrong. So I had to start my own business. I had to basically, it was survive or, you know, that was really the only option. You know, I had to survive. I wasn't going to give up. You know, I was a single dad at the time. I basically had just went through a divorce. I had 2 kids that I had to pay for child support, and real estate was all I knew. So it's like, I basically had no option, you know? So that's what kind of forced me to start my own brokerage. It was more of an ego thing of being like, you know what, I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove y'all wrong. And I did, you know, I proved them wrong. And I basically started my own thing, and that fueled it. And then that transitioned me over to being appreciative of being able to be this real estate agent that can teach and help other people have an amazing life through real estate. And that's been my focus of like, how can I take what I've learned to help you become successful? And now that's why I like the broker role of like, you know, all new agents, they can come to me. I can help them. I can show you exactly what to do step by step because I've been there.
Yeah, definitely. With that, I had somewhat of a similar path. So I worked for this, not agency, but this government entity. And I was let go just because of budget issues or whatnot. But that kind of forced me into entrepreneurship full time anyway, right? And those first 3 months, probably the toughest. Definitely didn't have a lot of responsibilities as far as like kids and a wife and mortgage and stuff like that. So for you, man, I congratulate you for taking that step and being able to thrive, right? You spoke about ego, so being able to prove them wrong, and then the growth that you had within both with the company and you on a personal level, being more appreciative for the people that you actually help, right? So that those motivations kind of change as you grow individually and as a person. And I think it's really good for you to kind of highlight that, because I think people make it sound bad to say, hey, this is what was driving me, because everybody has ego, right? But for you to transition that and transition that and be a more powerful motivator is super, Yeah, indeed, man.
Yeah, it's basically the way that people want to take that and use it as fuel, because all ego is really just an emotion, and all emotion is fuel. And so whether it's anger, whether it's sadness or whatever, if you can harness that emotion and channel it into energy and to action, then it actually propels you forward. But most people, what they do is they channel it inside and they hold it and they build resentment, and then they get mad at people, and then they get upset at people, and then they blame everybody else for their problems. When what they should really do is channel that and take action and move forward to remove themselves from the situation that they're in. So basically, I took that as an opportunity to say, okay, I'll prove you wrong. And I was fueled with anger, resentment, all these different things. And I had to survive. So I had no option. And so it got me moving forward. And then I was like, you know what? And then, and only then, once you get out of survival mode, then you can start to reflect and be like, okay, how did I get here? All right, my bad. I got a call coming in. I exited out. And then, so basically, once that happens, and then you can actually self-reflect on like, how did I put myself in this position, instead of blaming everybody else for why, oh, you did me wrong. You have to assume responsibility for the things you did that led up to the things that happened. Even if someone did something that you didn't like, you still caused that to happen in some way, because people don't randomly just do stuff for no reason. Maybe, like, say, for instance, in your position, you could have maybe saw some budget cuts or something, downsizing or something like that, or whatever. But if you got fired and cut off and you just wanted to say, oh, woe is me, poor, pitiful me, and did nothing about it, which most people do, but you say, you know what, I'm confident enough in myself, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to move forward. Same thing, like if I'm confident in myself enough, I'm like, well, I guess this is the opportunity. Let's see what I have. Let's try and move forward with it. But the self-reflecting is where I really took the ego, took the anger, transitioned it over to become a better person, so those things don't happen again, to put me in a negative space and actually see the lessons that God's trying to teach me, to be like, okay, all right, I see I wasn't ready for this stage of my life yet until I learned these lessons. Because if I was further up and I still had this ego, or still was acting and doing the way that I was doing to cause whatever chaos, it was going to destroy a much bigger picture, but I had bigger things set up for me. So I had to learn these lessons now in order for me to grow. And it basically, if you have dreams and aspirations, then you're going to be tested and be like, okay, let's see how bad you really want these dreams. I'm going to throw some tests at you. I'm going to throw some obstacles at you. And if you actually overcome them, it's like, okay, you actually do want this. Then you'll have a little bit of success. But most people keep hitting that, and then they just go back to normal and be like, I don't really want it that much.
No, I can definitely relate to that, man. Because here at Revision, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of obstacles that we have to go through, especially with contracts and just working with different clients. It's like a roller coaster in a sense. And then not to think of all of the overhead and then payroll and all of this stuff that comes with being a business owner. But my approach is always like, hey, everything is going to be all right, right? Because it has to be. And everything is pretty much a test. So with all of the stress, with all of the, pretty much all of the tests that comes with entrepreneurship and leadership as well, I really tell my people, hey, it's okay to fail as quickly as possible, push through. All of these emotions are fine. It's normal. Let's go ahead and get clear and then push forward, because that's all we can do. And then a year from now, we'll look back on this same point where it's like, hey, we're stressed, we're overworked, and it's just a lot of stuff. But that growth is going to happen. And then a position like this is just going to feel like it's pretty much normal, or baby steps in a sense, right? Because you're going through those personal developments and personal growth as well. So incredible.
Yeah, I like to say embrace the chaos. Basically the same thing. It's like, I think if you constantly try and put the chaotic things that happen in growth in constant order, you're actually going to restrict your growth. So in going through seasons of growth, you have to embrace that chaos. And it's like, hey, look, we're going to push through this. And once stuff settles down, then we'll get stuff lined out and smooth and dialed in. It's not going to be perfect and streamlined. Mm-hmm. Nothing is. It just does. It's not like that. It's just organic, crazy growth. You do it, then you stabilize, you build a nice foundation that you've leveled up to. So that way you don't fall back. You know?
Yeah. So we went through our period of growth, probably like within these last 3-4 months, and it's been pretty crazy. And then now it's time to kind of reflect and then put systems in place, document what we did, what we didn't do, what we could have done better, and just automate different processes. So once we experience that growth again, it's not so chaotic, right? But at the same time, not build out something completely to put some kind of handicap on us to because being a small company, you have the flexibility to make decisions quickly, right? But all of the data that we're collecting on clients, all of the data from websites, paid advertising and stuff like that is important to just kind of have that at your fingertips and be able to make those decisions. But yeah, I mean, for you, I've been watching you with just video production, some of the landing pages that you do, how you present offers and stuff like that to people that want to join your organization or your group. It's incredible, man. So from a marketing standpoint, how were you able to grow? Because you started the brokerage in 2017, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have currently 17 agents?
Yeah, I think it's around there. I think we just got a new guy, so it's 17 or 18, one of those.
Okay. So how were you able to grow to 17 or 18 agents from 2017?
Transparency. I think that's the biggest part of it is full transparency. And I think just going back onto what you said, it's, I took I naturally have a passion for marketing. Like I love marketing, advertising, solving problems, coming up with creative solutions and actually testing those and implementing those. So I'm constantly trialing and erroring different things. So I built the website. I built every, marketing piece that I've done from ads to, landing pages, all that stuff. So that I know how they work. So that way I can sit there and teach and tell other people, hey, do this, do that. So they don't have to try and figure it out. But I use that as basically full transparency when I came out, basically saying, look, here's what we're offering. Here's what we do better than everyone else. And I just stayed consistent with it. I come out with a compelling offer. I did my math and stuff when I was contemplating how I was going to start the brokerage. I had to figure out what my splits were going to be, what my commission cap was going to be, what I was going to offer, what I wasn't going to do. So I just sat there and did market research on what I saw other people were doing, ran some numbers on what I thought was obtainable. And I said, okay, if I could do this, 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 and this is doable. And so I basically set my goals out before I went after them. And then I basically was like, okay, I need X amount of number of people to be able to make this work. And then after you achieve that, it's totally not what you expected it was going to be. So then you have to modify and be like, but at least you got there. And I think the biggest point with entrepreneurship is you'll start at A, but you'll never arrive at Z unless you go and pursue B. So essentially, you might have product A and you're like, oh, I'm gonna sell whatever widget, right? I'm gonna sell this amazing thing. And then you introduce it to the marketplace. And the marketplace is like, I don't really want this, but we do like some of this. So you modify it and then you get to B and you're like, oh, here's the modification product. Oh, we'll offer you this. They're like, we really like this, but if you could improve this. So then you create product C and you're constantly tweaking and modifying it. And next thing you know, before 5, 6, 7 iterations down the road, you're selling and doing something completely different than you thought you were, but everyone loves it. But you'll never figure that out until you at least try and introduce something initially to the market. And I think that that's where a lot of people stop when it comes to entrepreneurship. They never just try and introduce the product and listen to that feedback loop of like, well, we really like this, but we don't like this. And then you just got to tweak it. And eventually you'll get there if you just keep improving what you keep offering.
Indeed. And that's one of our values here is constant improvement, transparency, and results, because that's those are the only things that matter truly to individuals, right? So with constant improvement, we see a lot of small business owners, they want perfection upfront in a sense, right? So they want the logo to be extraordinary. They want the website to be defined, everything on there before they launch, right? Sometimes that's fine, but if you're a small business with limited resources, get something out there as soon as possible. That's what we always say. Perfection and searching for it costs a lot of time. And it's not guaranteed for anyone. And then even if you do spend all of the time doing it, there's no guarantee that the clients would like it or love it, right? And that's the only thing that matters, if your clients like it or love it. So constant improvement, having that feedback from the clients is extremely important. How have you been able to kind of do that over the years? Because you talked about reflecting on just yourself after you were able to grow. So from 2017 to 2018 probably was the roughest year for you, the first full year as a brokerage?
No, that was actually the easiest because I wasn't trying to hire agents then. That was me just starting a brokerage, doing my own thing. And I was just like, it's just me. So I crushed it. I was just like making sales left and right. It's when I started to become more than just myself. That's when it got difficult. When you step into more of a management leader role type, you stop thinking about what's best for you and what's best for everyone else. That's where it got difficult. So, but yeah, we started bringing agents on at 18, but that's where it got tricky.
Tricky indeed. So I think you built a solid foundation. Would you agree, as far as like building a personal brand and doing marketing and video content in 2017? I don't think I followed you in that time period, but
yeah, I mean, I was probably just doing my same old thing. I was running Facebook ads, collecting names, email, phone number, and then following up, assessing criteria information, and then going out and finding them stuff. And then I started coming up with creative marketing stuff to be able to get business going. You know, I come up with like $1 listing and flat fees and all these things just to get business going, because I decided I was going to sit there and figure out how to get business instead of competing with everyone else. I was going to do a different approach. I was going to do price penetration or create different offers and stuff like that. So basically I said, okay, I'll sit here and take discount listings just to get listings, because that way it will at least get something going. And then that way I can use it as like a marketing campaign or a one-time offer or something like that, just to spur those things to get some kind of business coming in. So then that way I have something to promote, something to advertise. And that's really what actually kicked the business off. Instead of me trying to be like, oh, I offer X, Y, Z, it's like, I can do this better than them. And they're like, okay, I'll choose that because it was a better option. They got more value. They could see it. And that's what actually helped me survive with it.
I think when I was reading your bio on the website, you were saying your approach was basically you either love me or you hate me. You can't really play the middle. So how has that kind of played out for you as a brokerage early on anyway?
That's tamed down a whole lot more. Simply because when it comes to branding, I have to now realize it's not just me as an individual. It's me as a brokerage and a brand that other agents then identify with. So if I'm out here doing crazy stuff, they might not agree and want to distance themselves. But also at the same time, I have to challenge myself, because that might be a limiting belief. They might want me to be doing those type of things because that's probably why they joined it in the first place. So I don't necessarily know. So I've kind of dialed back a lot. But now I'm slowly pushing back out there of really trying to push the envelope again, simply because I think that's why people picked me in the first place, because they knew that I did things differently and stuff like that. And I'd rather be the one leading that as an example instead of encouraging them to do it. So it's just the biggest struggle for me has been more of an identity crisis of going from top producing real estate agent to real estate broker and getting that real estate agent mindset out and being like, what does a real estate broker talk about? Like, and like real estate agents, you know, they show houses, they do property tours. It's like, but if I keep doing that, then people will associate me with real estate in the agent perspective. So it's like, I have to be more business minded, or at least I think I do. I don't know. See, that's my constant struggle now of figuring what direction and what content to kind of put out as a broker, So that's what's tricky.
Indeed. So you said another tricky part of just growing a business was bringing on additional agents or bringing on agents. What was the biggest challenge you faced when bringing on agents to your brokerage?
Figuring out how to even recruit people. That was the thing. So I come up with a different solution. I said, okay, well, I'm just going to get all the email addresses to all the current agents and just start spamming them. So I basically I dialed in a nice looking newsletter through MailChimp. And then I would just come out like with a weekly email and mail it to every single real estate agent. And it made a lot of people mad because no one was doing that, because I was flat out sending it to the brokers, the owners, the agents, and they were like, stop trying to recruit my agents. I'm like, hey, if it's making you mad, I at least know it's getting some traction. And that actually brought a lot of people on because, again, the full transparency. I was like, hey, look, here's what I'm offering. I just want to let you know, just putting it out there. I don't call people. I don't call real estate agents. I don't ask them if they want to come join. I don't sit down and say, hey, you want to have a cup of coffee and let's meet. I'd rather put all the information out there and let that person make an informed decision, and they'll reach out to me. And then that usually works because we have very little turnover rate because everybody's happy here because they chose to come here. I didn't sit there and try and constantly convince and beg them to come here. Because if they don't want to be here, I'd rather them be somewhere else because I want them to be happy wherever they are, So, but yeah, the figuring out how to recruit agents was a very tricky thing because there's really no playbook, to that. And if there is, those companies aren't really sharing that.
As far as resources, who has been probably like one of the biggest resources you used as far as like knowledge, wisdom, business acumen, things like that to help you grow as a business?
Man, I don't know. It's a lot of self-research. I watch Bet David, Cardone, Gary V, like Ed Milet, the usuals, all the top social media people. But I mainly it's been more a lot of reading. I'll sit there and do I do Audible, and I'll sit there and read different books and listen to different podcasts like Tim Ferriss and stuff like that. And then when they reference a different book, I'll download the book and I'll listen to that. Mm-hmm. So those type of things really help a lot.
So as far as entrepreneurship, it's always a roller coaster, right? So what was one of the highest points you had from like 2017 up until now, as far as like gratitude or pretty much anything, one of the highest points you have seen within entrepreneurship? And this doesn't have to be like revenue. This can be more so a personal thing where you've seen one of your agents succeed. So pretty much anything that just filled you with gratitude as a business owner.
Yeah, like two things. Well, like seeing agents push past their mental barriers and really embrace their potential and actually go for it and achieve it. That's really gratifying, to be able to see them get to that level. And then this year we also hit like 100 million in sales, and to have everybody there. We had like $100 million party and stuff like that. And it's cool to be able to sit there, book an event, pay for all the catering for everything. And then it's like the agents don't, spend any money. It's like to be able to have the money coming in to where you can just constantly come up with different things to reward the agents for the success, that you're able to have, and to see that the people, some people that were there when we first started, to still be there and see how far they've grown and the things that they've overcome and stuff like that. So it's really cool to be able to see all that. Mm-hmm. And actually be like, holy crap, this you did this, it's pretty cool. Like, I still feel like I'm just a regular person. I don't see myself as a boss or an owner or whatever. I just see myself as someone to try to push this thing to be as big as it can and help as many people, become the best agent they can be, essentially.
Indeed. And mine is somewhat similar because I have a few people on the team, and I have one young lady who's coming into leadership, and she's the project manager for a lot of different things for the company, right? And we interface with different government organizations, and you have people that run the state of Louisiana, within just like overseeing different projects and stuff, and seeing her being able to kind of talk to these people and figure out different problems now compared to probably like 9 months ago when she was just like in this shell, and then just allowing her to fail, get that knowledge in, and then find confidence and interfacing with different people is super rewarding. And then Michael as well. He's our IT support specialist. He's super comfortable interfacing with different clients and people and figuring out questions and just championing different things. So that growth within them personally is super gratifying. So I think with entrepreneurship, once you start bringing on people, it becomes less about you as the individual and a lot more about what's best for the team. How can you make sure that the environment is good and stuff like that? So, yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting it right on the head as far as like growth as a business, because we only have 2 people now going on 3 or 4 team members, and you have 17. Yeah, that's quite a bit. That's a lot of personalities to kind of get to know, right?
Yeah, but I guess that's the thing with it is I never realized how good I am at this role until like I always had an idea that I would be like a good boss or a good leader or whatever. But until you actually do it, you're like, oh, wow, I actually have these characteristics that are actually good because I'm really good at paying attention to characteristics that other people display and help them overcome their mental barriers to push past those things. So it's like, that's actually really beneficial and something to help people grow. So I'm able to sit there and give people specific things to try and do differently and see and watch them progress. It's really gratifying in that sense that it feels like I'm where I'm supposed to be. If instead of just like, selling a bunch of stuff or whatever, it's like, oh, I'm selling. It's like, to really be able to help and change other people and see their lives grow too. And the success that they can get. It's like, this is really cool. Like you actually feel so much better about yourself when you see other people being successful, that you were a part of that. You had a hand in their success. I think to that's probably out of all of it. That's probably the most rewarding thing, to be able to sit back and when we have our little, Christmas parties and stuff, and to hear the agents, that left their jobs, that are doing real estate full time, being grateful for what we've created and the help that we've been able to give them to get where they are now. Like that's really something that's like, wow, you actually changed someone's life, and now they're living a totally different life because of something that you created. Like I don't know, that's what makes it work.
Indeed, man. So with that and entrepreneurship overall, it's always those hills and valleys, right? So you talked about some of the high points that is self-fulfilling and rewarding to you as an individual. So what are some of the lowest points that you had to go through as an entrepreneur, and how have you been able to kind of overcome it?
I'd probably say anytime that I overextended myself to try and give more to the agents and not pay enough attention to what was bringing in revenue to keep the thing afloat. Because if you're constantly helping and giving, because I would basically give away a lot of my business and hand it to the agents, and I would get like a partial amount, that I would normally get to help them be successful, right? And then it would hurt me because I wouldn't have as much revenue coming in. And then they might not be as high of a producer as I was. So then my revenue's going lower, but my expenses are still the same. They don't carry all the expenses that I do. So anytime those would happen, so it was always very tough to juggle that when I remove myself from production and make sure they're doing well, but still needing to be in production to keep the bills paid. But probably the toughest time was right before COVID hit, right before it hit, because I was, I had more staff, I had more expenses. Things were slow because of the holiday season and stuff like that. I was barely even making enough just to even cover my personal expenses plus the expenses of this. And so then you get in that, okay, well, what can I cut? What can I trim to make this float to keep this going? And I was contemplating closing this office down and even get rid of the staff member that I had just to save like $3,000 or $4,000 a month, you know? And then COVID hit, and my person that I had, you know, doing like the admin stuff, they got offered a better job. I'm like, yes, please go take it. Because I was going to fire you, but I didn't want to, you know, it's like, I want you to go, you know, have something. And then I assumed their role, and I said, okay, I'll just make the drive. I'll make this work. And then then everything started booming with real estate. And then of course, you know, with real estate, we had like our best 2 years because it was just a weird way that the market reacted. So we were able to grow from it. So yeah, it was from the time of about to consider closing offices down, which probably would have pushed some agents to go elsewhere, to being like our biggest year. So it was very odd.
Gee whiz. No, that's so real estate within the last 2 years. So you said you just passed 100 million this year, right? How much of that has been attributed to just like the booming economy with COVID or after COVID?
Basically, I think we did like 35 million or something last year, and we'll probably do like 40 million this year. So, I mean, yeah, that was like 70 million worth, but I can't say, I mean, we were already on pace that I'd probably say an additional, probably like 10 million just from it, you know? But yeah, we were already on pace to steady growth, but the influx and the amount of time that we got all these sales, normally these sales are spread out, but they were all just condensed at the beginning part of the year. Now the market's kind of flat because all the people bought before that would normally be buying now and during the summer. That's why the summer was a little slow, and now it's a little slow because now, you know, you got the Delta variant and all that stuff that kind of thrown a lot of people for a loop again. So it might boom again next year. I don't know, but a lot of people think, you know, the prices are really inflated. It's just a really weird time in the economy right now. So, I mean, who knows what'll happen next year? Real estate might be completely dead. I mean, you never know. I mean, but that's the thing though, is I think that with entrepreneurship, the number one skill you should have is adaptability. And you have to be able to adapt to the changing circumstances. And this is like the perfect example of adaptability. Because if you can't adapt, then you might not have a business 6 months from now, you know?
Yeah. So within the last year or 2 years or whatnot, it's been a lot of growth for you as a business, right? And you talked early on about basically having that growth, and then after just kind of reflecting and then implementing different things, and then growth comes again. But you have better processes, better systems, more wisdom, knowledge in place to kind of allow for a smoother ride in a sense, right? Within this last boom, what's the biggest takeaway that you had, or the biggest flaws that you've seen, and that you're kind of working on bettering to help you grow even more in the future?
I think seeing that we think that we're smarter than we are, in the sense that, oh, if we think we have all these systems in place and everything will be perfect, that's like, yes, you build those systems in place for the times as they currently are to operate. But when stuff gets crazy or stuff gets where you're super busy or super slow, those systems need to be able to adapt and adjust. And you might not necessarily need all these systems in place that you think you do. And if you just build your system and workflow to go with the natural order of things, to keep that system running smoothly, instead of placing checks and balances and barriers that naturally slow and restrict it, you're going to be that much further off. Because I actually eliminated and cut out so much junk that I thought was needed, that I thought that I'm like, oh, delivering all this value. It's like, the more you pay attention, you'll actually see what's actually important, what's not important. So you just start trimming the fat and getting it running real lean, to where then you can build on those things that the agents naturally want, or the business naturally needs to grow, instead of saying, oh, we're going to do this and this and this and this. And they're like, we didn't really need those things. And then you do them, and then you waste time and energy doing them. But if you know what your core function and workflows are, you can build from that. So that would be my biggest thing, is understanding that and then building from it, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And I was reading something probably the other week where it was like, hey, make sure they was talking about AI in marketing or copywriting, right? They say make sure that you have the overall strategy first and then put systems, software and stuff like that in place to just kind of build upon it. I found myself kind of going back to that a lot, because within all of these systems, within like Canva, some of the blueprints and stuff like that we use for business, it's definitely a lot. And then it comes preloaded with different features that you can kind of get lost in, right? So with my team, I make sure that we get back to the basics. So we use pen and paper, just document the overall process. When does another team member need to step in? Let's get the overall process in order first before we put it into any kind of system or implement a new system or process, right? Because we have to fully understand what we're doing first before pretty much making it look even prettier, or systematizing it, because you can definitely get lost in it.
Yeah, just trying to advance it, then you move it forward and you end up taking 2 steps back of just like, that was a waste of time. But the good thing is once you know those foundations, you can realize if you're getting off the rails and be like, okay, this isn't working. And then you can course correct, which I think is, like you said, if you know your core workflow, you know what works and you know how people work within your organization, you can add to it easily, because every organization is going to be different, because it's going to all have a different vibe and different feel and the way that you do things and stuff like that. So it's like a business is definitely like its own living, breathing organism that you have to figure out. You got to get to know it, you know?
Indeed. No, definitely. And I think it's super wise to go ahead and, like you said earlier, make sure you do something quickly. So when you started the brokerage, you went ahead and just set goals and then you went after it, right? You didn't kind of spend a lot of time strategizing, perfecting everything, because everything changes, right? And then you also put it in front of clients or prospects to see if they liked it. And then you tweaked it and then just kind of kept tweaking it until it got to a place of where it's good, it's sellable, right? And then you tweak it and tweak it and tweak it some more. It just keeps going. And I think that's the same with overall business processes. So bringing in the stakeholders, if you will, or the team members who are actually doing the work, right? Bring them in, ask them about it, see if you're on the right track as far as the overall process. Because you can get to a point where it's like, hey, we didn't really ask for this. This isn't adding value or anything like that. But when you're at the top, you're like, oh, I think this would be pretty good. And then you kind of lose sight of what the day-to-day looks like. Right. So yeah, definitely bringing in people in strategic places to document the overall workflow is super important. But
the tricky thing with that is a lot of people don't know what they want until they actually see it. So that's where you can constantly ask, hey, what should we do? And they're like, I don't know. I mean, they were like, I got an idea. They're like, sounds cool. You know, because they don't have the hindsight to look at the outside and look in and see how they can improve it. Like you said, they're focused on the day to day, but you're looking at, okay, how can I move and tweak and adjust and flow? That's why it's so important. If you get an idea, run it by them and say, hey, I'm going to implement this. Sounds good. Okay, that sounds cool. Implement it. Then you have to get feedback of how they interact with it. They got to play with it. They got to do this. And then they might like only a certain part of what you introduce. And then you focus on that part that they liked. And then you strip away all the other stuff and you improve upon that. You know, that's like, I think my big takeaway of why I realized I had to do that was because, like, perfect example of how Apple does software updates. It's never perfect. They'll give you a beta test, put it out there, and then do constant modifications and upgrades and all that. So it's like, why should we expect to have our business running absolutely perfect and streamlined if you have all these companies that are constantly doing updates and whatever? So then we'll get all excited because we're probably visionaries and we'll write everything down and we want everything to be like that right then. But we're like, okay, let's chip away the parts that we can implement now and then work towards those as updates. It'll be like, oh, now we're releasing this. Now we're releasing this. Instead of giving everything to them all at once, then now you're going to have to update something else. Then you just gave them everything. So it's like space all that stuff out and it'll go longer. So those were different things that I realized that I'm like, oh, I can just beta test everything. And that way, if it doesn't work, I can just scrap it or take pieces from it and then modify.
Indeed. And that goes back to your first comment when you had said you kind of embrace the chaos, right? Not being under the conclusion that, hey, once I go ahead and develop this workflow, this process, this is it. This is what everyone is going to use. But it's like, hey, give me that feedback. It's going to be constant changes until we get to something that's good and beneficial, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think once you spread that vision amongst your team to know that, look, we're just trying to survive and make this thing go. I think if you read the book Good to Great, it talks about, or maybe Great to there's his follow-up book, the one after Good to Great. It basically talks about making sure to get the right people on the bus, and they're on the bus specifically for the vision that you're sharing. And that way they know, look, this is going to be a bumpy ride. So as long as you're on here, just know the bus is going somewhere. We're going to get there, but it might be a little chaotic along the way. Mm-hmm. So as long as they know and share that same vision that there's going to be constant iterations and adjustments, it'll be easy. But if they think that everything's happy and normal and whatever, and then you keep changing stuff, they're like, I don't want any part of this. I want a smooth ride. So it's making sure that people that are a part of your organization know your vision. And I always lead with that. I always share with where we're going, what we're doing, because if they are aligning with my vision, then I know that they're going to be supportive of the changes that we're going to be doing in the future.
Well said, man. So no, this was an incredible interview. So as far as entrepreneurship, and just kind of talking to your 15-year-old self or your 25-year-old self, what would you tell that person? Just some kind of foresight into what it's like being a business owner and owner of a brokerage.
Basically, I would tell myself that it's all going to work out. And just to actually go for it. Because I had all these ideas back then. And I think a lot of people that are true entrepreneurs constantly have these ideas. They just never take action. But you're so scared to mess up. But if you just actually take that leap and you even mess up, at least you took the leap and at least you tried, because a lot of people don't even try. The very fact that when you try and you realize and you jump and you're like, oh, wow, that wasn't that bad. Or even if the fall was bad, it wasn't like, oh, that's cool, I'll brush this off. But at least you're that much further ahead and everybody else is still standing back there like, oh, how is it up there? You're like, I don't know, but I'm going to keep going. So it's like, I would tell myself that everything's going to be okay. Just give it your best effort and it's going to work out fine. Believe in yourself more than anything. That's the biggest thing. Is I think that if we just go and we look inward for direction instead of constantly looking outward for direction, we'll find that we naturally know the path that we need to take. And I try and reflect more than I do ask for advice. Like, I don't ask advice from anybody on what to do. I write my thoughts down just like you do in a book. I get the thoughts out of my head. I reflect, I reanalyze, and I choose where I want to go. I don't ask people where they think I should go. So I think if people embraced the chaos and embraced their inner guidance and direction, they would get a lot further in life and just be willing to take those risks.
Well said, man. Well, Ronnie George, it was a pleasure speaking to you, man. Thank you so much for joining us on the EntreNetwork.
Yeah, man, I think what you're doing is great. And I think that you've put something together. You're a great interviewer. I think you have solid questions. I look forward to maybe doing a follow with you in 5 years and seeing how far you've progressed with this, because this is exactly what you should be doing. And I wish more people would do it. And it's cool to see that you are a good fit for it. Like it fits really well. So, I mean, I'm curious to see how well things are going to keep going for you. And I wish you nothing but the best with it.
Thank you, man.
For sure.